The story starts off by introducing us to the frontier territory of Kazel. It is a land suffering from a severe drought, making everybody go crazy from the lack of water. The well has dried up, and all the fields are cracked, so farming is not even an option. It's not just the humans, even the animals are dying from dehydration. Those filled with fear understand that they need to run away before the situation gets worse. But, of course, it's not that easy, as the Margrave of Kazel considers this to be a grave offense and deploys his soldiers to punish anybody trying to leave by execution. One of the soldiers walks up, slicing a man's throat as all the villagers begin running. A little kid is escaping but manages to trip somehow. The kid turns with eyes full of fear, begging for somebody to save him as the soldier raises his sword into the air. But the kid does not get saved, rather, he is executed on the spot. The one who led this charge was the son of the Margrave, Kazel. He is a powerful magician said to have the blood of the divine kings flowing through his veins. We see him making an annoyed face, saying that even beasts know favors must be repaid. He asks the citizens if they don't know why they're still alive. It's thanks to their grace, the ones who have divine blood inside of them, and yet they try to run because it hasn't rained in a while. He asks how dare they be so impudent. A woman cries while holding on to her child, saying that she's sorry and begging that if they have to execute her, at least let her child live. A soldier tells her to shut up as he stabs her through the back with a spear, almost collapsing her. Instead, he paints the child with his mother's blood. The mother falls, and the kid starts to crawl away from his mother's lifeless corpse. The Margrave's son asks how the soldier can be so thoughtless, saying that they are no fun. The soldier apologizes for his ignorance, asking what they can do to entertain him further. The Margrave's son smiles. We see them starting to hang the villagers, and it gets even worse as the villagers need to hold their loved ones up, or else they'll die, which is hella dark and twisted. One of the soldiers then calls out to the young master. When he turns around, the soldier explains that he's already stabbed the husband, so they'll have to tie a rope around his waist, or else he'll bleed out before they do anything else. They should at least enjoy it while he's alive. A woman cries while holding up her husband, shaking and begging them not to do this. She even runs up to one of the soldiers, doing her best to plead with him. He slaps her in the face, telling her to piss off. She holds on to her cheek while crying, calling out to her husband. The Margrave's son starts laughing at her and says it is truly magnificent. We see the woman holding on to her husband, supporting him while crying. The young master tells her that she's doing a great job and that she should stay there, continuing to support him. Because without her, the wound will open up, and he will die. We see her shaking to hold up his body. We hear a man telling the young master to stop treating the blood of the divine king so lightly. When he turns, we see a knight approaching him. We learn that his name is Zebek. He stands right in front of the young master, and we learn that he is actually his sword instructor. He asks the young master if there is any need to go this far in punishing people, as a noble that has inherited the blood of a divine king should at least have some dignity. The young master says that his dignity will remain intact as long as the word of what happens here does not escape, and that the citizens are all idiots for trying to run away just because it hasn't rained in a bit. He asks Zebek what he will do and if he's going to be the one to spread the word about this, saying there's no way a holy knight acknowledged by the king's church should talk back to those with divine blood. Zebek says he simply meant to say that the truth cannot be hidden forever. The young master sighs but is casually annoyed. The soldier asks if they should just kill Zebek, but the young master asks for a whip instead. He hands it to him, only for the young master to start whipping the girl who is supporting her husband. Zebek looks shocked as he can't do anything but helplessly watch as the woman gets continuously whipped. After a while, the young master is gassed out and starts to smile, saying it truly is a sight to behold as she's still doing her best to support him, even though she is being whipped. He then starts to walk away, smiling and telling Zebek that he should lighten up as well and that they should enjoy life while they can. Zebek just stares at the corpses, probably feeling frustrated. Night falls, and we see there's nobody supporting some of the people anymore as they're all just hanging around. Some of them have passed out due to dehydration. Ivan tells his lover, her name is Sophia, that she should just run away and that he was wrong. She shakes her head no, tightening her grip on him. She asks him if the Emperor's herald is really going to come as we see her holding a coin. She looks out towards the horizon, wondering where they are. After a while, she passes out due to the pain, and we see someone feeding her water to wake her up. She starts coughing, opening her eyes, wondering who it is, only to see none other than Zebek, who tells her to keep quiet. He asks if she can eat while holding up a spoonful of food. He starts nursing her back to health. We see that he actually used his cape as a makeshift blanket and stayed guard while she slept. He looks up at the sun, realizing it's about time to go, telling Sophia to wake up. He says that he came here without an iPhone knowing, so he must leave, or else he's going to be punished if they find out. He then starts to make a pained face, saying that he's sorry about her fiancé and that there is no need to hold him any longer. We see that he's actually propped him up on a stick, but it's unkezeller if the man is alive. Sophia's eyes look terrified as she knocks the stick over, surprising Zebek. He watches as she just continues struggling to hold him, asking for his name because she will tell the Herald clan to spare him when they come. The name, Loki, makes him a bit angry, asking if she means the Slayers of Sanctity, saying they're all soulless heretics. He asks if she contracted them. She nods her head yes. Zebek says he doesn't know if they truly exist, but even if they do come here, the young master has 20 well-armed soldiers under his command, and even Zebek, not to mention that the young master also has blue blood within him. He says surely she's aware of how incredible the divine blood is, specifically the blood of Yegas. Sophia says that even if he's a magician, the Herald clan is capable of killing him because they are also magicians. The reason they are called the Slayers of Sanctity is because they were given that name after they slayed the kings bearing the divine blood. Zebek shakes his head, saying that she's casually not in the right state of mind, but there isn't anybody who would be after being traumatized like this. He introduces himself formally, saying that he is Zebek, a holy knight of the king's church. He's not telling her his name to beg the Slayers of Sanctity for his life, but rather just so she can tell them that even if they came, he would fight them with everything that he has. He tells her that he'll be back at night to check on her. As he leaves, her eyes look completely distraught, but she tells herself to keep up for 2 days. As she looks down at the symbol of the Herald clan, she says, 2 days is all I need. It then jumps to a farmhouse, back before the territory suffered from the drought. We hear Yvonne telling Sophia that this is a gift, and she asks what it is. She asks if she has heard of the Herald clan. She says yes, explaining that she heard about them from her father, who told her a story when she was younger, mentioning that every single one of the members of the Herald clan are soulless. Yvonne says that is correct, and the gold coin she is holding is the Emperor's gold. It will call those who are soulless to it, but she must be careful because possessing it means the heretical interrogators of the king's church will execute her. He then kisses her on the cheek. She starts to get really embarrassed. She asks why he is giving her such a dangerous thing as a gift. He says that it is just in case of severe emergencies and, if something were to happen to them, it is said that if she draws a triangle on the ground and places the gold coin in the middle, it will call for a herald to come and help you. Although he hopes they never have to try it, he wants her to have it just in case. That is why there was the triangle on the ground that Sophia was looking at as she told herself that 2 days is all she had to hold on for. Her husband's corpse was now starting to attract flies. A whole day goes by, and she still remains determined, saying that 1 more day is all she needs. She looks up at the sun, saying that if she gets through this, it will all be okay, but her vision starts to get disoriented as she falls to the floor from a lack of water. Sophia died of dehydration but stayed determined until the end. It then jumps to an outpost as all the soldiers are caselating themselves from the massacre of the village. Zebek is also there, looking up at the sun, saying it is unusually hot today. Young Master then calls out to him, asking why he is still not smiling, saying that he should be having a great time. Zebek says if they kill the citizens, then they can't collect the taxes. Young Master tells him that those who were dissatisfied have already left and that there's not going to be much to collect, as they are already stealing from one another. Zebek clenches his fist, saying that the Margrave's territory has rich soil, so they can evacuate the people there, and there's no need for them to suffer like this. Young Master says they need to suffer since they are ungrateful and adds that they are going to ruin their agriculture and run away like they tried this time. Zebek tries to tell him that the agriculture won't be ruined, as it's based on individual skill, but Young Master barks at him, saying that it depends on the soil, climate, and the king's light. He says that surely Zebek was taught this by the church while laughing. Zebek looks annoyed but doesn't say anything as young master gets right in his face, saying that they are suffering this drought because they were unfaithful towards the king's church. That's also something mentioned in the doctrine, which he should know. Zebek tells him that's a broad interpretation. Young master tells him that someone made the soil rich and someone else caused the drought. They should punish the sinners and those who have tried fleeing and ruined their lands, whereas those who contributed to making the soil rich should be given land. He's doing this in order to save the people. He adds that if Zebek wants to go against his orders and save them, he should give it his best shot. Young master begins to walk away, and Zebek stands there, not saying a word. It then jumps to some slums back in their frontier territory, as even more citizens have died from dehydration. Zebek approaches the hill where he left Sophia and sees her corpse on the ground. His eyes look very pained as he clenches his fist in anger, saying in the end, she couldn't endure it and that it would be useless even if the heralds were to come now because they've already lost most of the villagers. While he's standing in front of her corpse, he starts to feel an ominous presence. Immediately, someone appears behind him, holding a sword to the back of his head, saying that he'll cut him down here if he moves and telling Zebek not to turn around. Zebek says that if the dude is suddenly swinging his sword around like this and his aura is that of a ghost, he must be a herald. The man says that he is, asking if Zebek is a knight or a rescuer. Zebek introduces himself, saying that he's from the king's church. The man says he sees and was just asking in case, but surely Zebek's not a contractor. He adds that if a holy knight of the king's church were to petition a contract, that would be a pretty interesting sight. Zebek starts to get pissed, asking if he's trying to mock him. The man thinks about the situation, saying that the girl was his contractor and she's already dead, so he gained a free gold coin. He asks what happened here in the first place. Zebek says that if the man sheathes his sword and puts distance between them, then he'll put his honor on the line and tell him the truth. The man smiles and nods as he uses his ghost-like aura to severely increase the gap between the two of them. Zebek can't believe he moves so far so quickly, wondering if this dude is actually a phantom. The man sheathes his blade, saying it seems like he's confident that he wouldn't have been bodied if he hadn't ambushed him, but says that's fine with him. He adds that if he's a holy knight from the king's church, then he should at least have some guts. Zebek asks the man if he is a mage, and he says that everybody in the Herald clan is, except for him. Zebek asks if he's really trying to say that that wasn't magic just now, and the man tells him that it must be hard for him to distinguish superhuman physical power from magic. Zebek has no idea what he's saying, asking what his name is and what his rank is as a herald. The man remains silent, and Zebek says he already told him his name and where he's from. The man asks if he really did, saying that he didn't hear him. He then says that his name is Azaden of the 108 Spirits, the Emperor's Herald. Zebek says that the 108 Spirits is the lowest rank, but the movement he displayed just now proves that he is far from ordinary. Azaden says, as he has promised, he needs to tell him what happened here. Some time goes by as they're looking over the frontier territory. As Zebek has been told what happened, Azaden says, that's one hell of a story. We then hear a different voice saying, the contract has been established. Zebek notices something in the air as he spots a bird flying overhead. It lands on Azaden's shoulder, mentioning how he had earned free coins because the requester died. Zebek is surprised that the owl is talking, but the owl continues, saying it's time to start moving to complete the other mission and that he can't rest, telling him to get going. Azaden clicks his tongue and starts to leave, but Zebek asks him to wait, asking if he's really just going to leave after taking his reward because the requester has died. Azaden asks if he wants the request to be fulfilled, saying he finds that strange, as his master will suffer if he does. Zebek tells him that won't happen, calling him a soulless one. He unsheathes his blade, pointing it at him, saying that he will defeat him here. Azaden says it's pretty funny that he tried to stop him with a sword, then remains silent before witnessing all this injustice. Even for him, that's pretty sad. Zebek starts to get annoyed, but that turns to being completely pissed. Azaden asks if he's mad at him or himself because he turned his back after witnessing the atrocities that he did. Zebek asks him what he even knows. Azaden then asks if he knows the constellations of the night sky and how they all hold different meaning. Zebek asks why he's bringing this up, wondering what he's playing at. Azaden says that humans may see the same thing, but they feel something different. To some, one may look like the protagonist of a myth, but to others, it might just be nothing more than a faint pale light flickering in the darkness. Just as how the sight of them being ravaged may appear differently to him compared to the eyes of the other soldiers. As he touches Ivan's corpse, Zebek puts his sword down, saying that it's different. It's because he couldn't do anything, and his eyes look full of regret. He looks down at his sword, then at his reflection, saying as a knight of the king's church, he must revere those who carry the bloodline of the divine king. Azadan tells him that he does not wish to fight him if he felt pity for the girl. Azadan then cuts the ropes off of Ivan, saying that his sword is no enemy of his. Zebek looks like he's having conflicted emotions as Azadan picks up Safia's corpse as well, asking if he has a shovel. Zebek asks why he needs one and if he's planning to bury these people, saying that is absolutely crazy. Azadan says that he'll hold a funeral for them. Zebek thinks about it, saying that young master wants them to stay hung on the trees to serve as a message to stop others from doing the same thing, and that burying these corpses is practically the same as challenging him. Azadan says that if he doesn't have one, then it can't be helped, as he starts using his hands to dig out the ground. Zebek resolves himself, tightening the grip on his blade. He thrusts it down into the ground, and Azadan looks up, seeing him digging with his hands as well. They are now digging individual graves for Safia and Ivan. After a bit, they finish, even adorning the gravestones with little crosses. Azadan says a prayer, asking for the Archangel of Wisdom, Courage, and Mercy to please look after their souls. Zebek asks why a man of the Herald clan is using the prayer of the Rescuer Order. Azadan shrugs, saying that he just likes their ideology. Zebek says he sure is a Rek'Kazels dude to abandon the destiny of his birth clan and serve the faith of heresy. Azadan says if he doesn't uphold what he believes is right, then his birth will have no meaning to begin with. Zebek asks him what he likes about the Rescuer Order. Azadan turns, grabbing something off his waist. As he starts to straighten it out and bend it, we see it's actually a bow that he had as a belt. Azadan says that from that direction, there's an individual approaching, and he thinks it's the one he serves. Zebek turns around, worried. It's none other than young master and his soldiers. Young master starts to laugh, asking if he liked that farmer woman that much, saying he should have told him that. Why is your horse so damn big? Young master says he will admit she was hella fine for a commoner, but that's about it. Zebek says that he must have known he'd take care of the girl and that there are around 20 heavily armed soldiers. Even for him, there is no chance of winning here. Young master then starts smirking, asking who the hell the bastard beside him is. As Azadan draws his bow, he releases the string, causing the arrow to go flying straight through the back of the soldiers, hitting the guy at the very back line directly in the eye. The dude starts to scream while shaking as he reaches up, grabbing onto his head. Zebek says for him to land a shot on the soldiers standing at the far end in this situation is crazy. Azadan then readies another arrow, releasing it again. As it flies straight towards the soldiers, we see them actually put up their shields this time to block it. One of the soldiers raises his shield up a little bit, only to feel a sharp pain in the groin. As he drops his shield, it cracks on the ground. He starts to fall to his knees, crying. That is one hell of a way to go out. The soldier bleeds out almost instantly because the arrow hit his femoral artery. The soldiers all start to feel panicked, and even Zebek says that his arrow actually pierced through the shield and curved like a snake. As Azadan says about his question just now, he was asking what he liked about the Rescuer Order, and he says he likes the idea that a person's worth is determined not by their birth but by their beliefs and actions. Just like how someone born with the blood of the Divine King, who rapes and massacres his people, cannot be considered a noble, young master starts to get pissed as Azadan readies his bow at him, saying that he actually can't even be considered a human. He then asks what some lowly commoner would even know, while yelling at the top of his lungs. Azadan has zero reaction to him screaming, as young master yells, telling Zebek, this is an order. Kill that bastard immediately. Azadan jumps off the floor as Zebek looks up. We see him soaring in the sky with the moonlight behind him. He readies his bow. The soldiers look up in horror, wondering if they're next. As Azadan releases an arrow, it hits one of the soldiers in the eye. He immediately straps two more, about to go for a double shot. He does exactly that, firing them and starting to fall back down toward the ground. As the soldiers writhe in pain, they run up, anticipating his landing, thrusting their spears forward, only for him to land on their weapons and use them as footing to get himself back up. He fires 3 arrows at the same time, taking out 3 more of the soldiers and even sending one astray right by young master, grazing his face. Young master looks terrified but notices that none of the people Azaden just shot are dead, except for the one dude who got shot in the nuts. Young master realizes that Azaden is just trying to disable all of the soldiers for life. Azaden then unleashes his ghost-like aura, wrapping it around him and using it as cover to fire from within. He continues to disable the soldiers one after another. He then appears directly behind young master, introducing himself and telling him that he is a herald. Young master looks terrified, as if he just dropped a log in his pants. The soldiers are also scared because that means he is soulless. Young master turns after hearing him behind, and when Azaden reaches for his arrows, he realizes he has no more left. Young master tells him that this is their chance, only for him to get hit straight in the face, targeting his eye and knocking him to the ground. Since he's out of arrows, Azaden starts to take his bow apart, wrapping it back around his waist. Young master starts screaming about his eye while lying on the ground. Azaden hops off the horse, only for one of the soldiers to come in from behind. Azaden sidesteps the attack, hitting this dude in the face as well. He reaches for the dude's sword, saying that he used his arrows to thin their numbers out, and if they are brave enough, they should walk forward and fight him. He then tells them that he almost forgot, as he stabs his sword down into one of the soldiers. We see them all making, "oh shit," faces because it turns out he just castrated that soldier as well. Azaden then turns, looking at the soldiers, who realize that this dude is a psycho. The owl watches the free show he has given them, and after a bit, the battlefield is now covered in blood. As Azaden makes his way through it, slowly walking forward to young master, he says, "Surely I didn't make you wait too long. For people like you, who constantly inflict pain on others, this is not nearly enough punishment." Young master turns, using some kind of magic that releases a bright yellow light, blinding everybody around them. The soldier says that he feels like he's going blind, and we see his eyes. It reveals that he has. I don't think it's going to work on Azaden. But young master asks if Azaden sees this, saying it is proof that his noble blood is incomparable to his. Azaden then swings his blade forward as we see blood flying. Young master realizes what has happened as he looks down and realizes that he too has just been castrated. Blood starts to drip from the bottom of his clothes. He screams out in pain, holding onto his groin and asking Azaden what the hell he has done. We even see him starting to cry. Azaden asks if he's mentally ill, saying surely he knows what he just did to him, and starts laughing. He then grabs young master by the hair. Young master asks him what the hell he wants from him, offering money, women, or pretty much anything he wants, as he's a descendant of the sacred Yeaga's holy family. Azaden says, "Unfortunately for you, I am a slayer of sanctity. Surely you understand what a herald is." Young master looks fearful and screams out to Zebek, whose face is pummeling, asking why he's not helping him, saying that's his duty. Zebek tells him that he can't see. Young master screams, telling him that he is a noble, asking if he doesn't remember, or if he's doing this because of what he did to those commoners. Azaden says, "Come to think of it, I'm sure you'll continue living even after this." Young master wonders what he means as we see Azaden raise his blade, going straight for young master's only remaining eye. He says, "I think you'll have to look at life a little differently," as he golduges out both of his eyes. Young master starts screaming in agony before passing out from the pain and falling over. Azaden says that even though he doesn't have a contractor, he thinks he's been more than considerate enough and that the emperor's law has been fulfilled. Zebek then starts to pull out his blade, saying that he is a knight of the Church of the King and cannot leave him, who speaks of the emperor's law, no matter if he performed a righteous deed or not. Azaden drops his blade, saying that he isn't like the other knights from the Church of the King. Zebek yells, asking if he's insulting him. Azaden says no, that he was praising him, as the other knights of the Church of the King are nothing more than scoundrels who have been forcefully exiled from their homes due to inheritance. Before Zebek can reply, Azaden continues, asking if he'll even be able to follow after him while laughing. Zebek asks what he means, only for Azaden to disappear with his ghost-like aura, saying they will meet again if fate wills it. Once the aura has settled, Zebek sees no sight of him, only spotting young master on the ground. He says nobody was able to kill Azaden the Herald, and they were left with permanent losses instead. He says what Azaden said about the knights was not wrong, and that applies to him as well. He smiles a little, saying that he can feel a weight off his chest, as at least Sophia and Yvonne were properly avenged. It then jumps to a whole group of people bowing before their lord, begging to be exempt from taxes. They tell him that all the people are running away, leaving the village, and those who have stayed are dying of starvation, returning as undead and wandering the streets. They are overrun with thieves and monsters and cannot even afford to pay the taxes because of these living conditions. The Lord waits for a second and then calls them shameless as he looks annoyed. We are introduced to none other than young Master's father, Margrave Kazel. He says that, at this rate, surely they would begin asking for food as well. The civilians start to feel fear, realizing that he is right. One man looks up, begging him, saying they are at their wits' end. Kazel tells him that nothing will change the lowly blood that flows within them, but if they wish, he will provide relief. They are surprised, asking if he really will. He smiles, saying, "Of course, on the condition that if you cannot comply with my request, then every single person inside this room will be hung." He asks if they would like to agree. They sit there in silence, shocked at what they have heard, staring at one another. Kazel starts to use some kind of magic on his hand, telling them not to be fearful, as what they are asking for amounts to nothing more than a single page. Such is the nature of this grimoire, he says as he holds it. They tell him they are ignorant of magic and don't know how to sense magic to find it. Kazel laughs, saying even ignorant fools like themselves will be able to find it if they simply wish for it. The grimoire will respond to their call and reveal itself. If they manage to bring him a page of the grimoire, he will exempt the village from taxes for 3 whole years and provide 50 bushels each of wheat, barley, and oats. They are surprised by this, and one of the men says, "Surely we need to at least know the name of the grimoire so we can search for it." Kazel clenches his fist, causing the magic to leave. Staring at them with an ominous expression, he says that it's a copy of the Book of the Divine King. The citizens are surprised, and after a bit, they leave. As we see Kazel sitting upon his throne, a snake slithers out from behind the curtains and rises up beside him. When he glances down at it, we see it transform into a beautiful lady who says that she feels mentioning the name of the book was rather careless. He tells her that's nonsense, saying he knows that her and her group are all searching for the grimoire and that rumors will spread across the continent either way. It would be wise to use the poor to find a page for them. He asks her what she really wants from revealing herself. She says she came here to tell him the truth, that his son has fallen victim. Before she can finish, he says that Kazel's forces wouldn't fall so easily, as Zebek is with them as well. She then informs him that the opponent was actually a member of the Herald clan. His eyes light up as he asks if she's certain. She says she's very sure and that they are after the Book of the Divine King because if they wish to be free of the curse of their duty, they will need the book as well. He asks her if his son is dead. She says he's alive, but he's lost sight in both of his eyes, and his nuts have been cut off as well. Kazel looks annoyed, and she asks him what he's going to do. He tells her to send soldiers to their vicinity and kill the herald that was sent. She says she understands and will make contact with the commander. He grabs onto her hand, saying she should get someone else to do it. If his kid has been castrated, he can just make another. As he pulls her into his lap, she starts to smile. It jumps to somewhere else in the territory, where Azaden shows he has no water. He sighs, saying this is bad, and at this rate, he's going to die of thirst. He asks the owl why he had to put on a show, saying he'd make it in 2 days, calling him foolish. The owl asks if he dares speak so impertinently to the emperor's mouth. Azaden stares at the owl like he's confused and then explains, in a whole wall of text, how the heralds came to be. He says it's because the emperor died without any plans, which cursed all of them. He continues hitting the owl with facts and logic, asking why he had to put on a show, making him drop everything he was doing to run here as fast as he could. Thanks to that, he might actually die of thirst. Even if he has food, he doesn't think he'll be able to digest it because it's so dry. The owl apologizes, saying his servant will soon be here. The owl notices something and wonders what's going on. As Azaden reaches for his blade, he wonders if it's a ghost. He sees a group forming in front of him. It's none other than Sophia, Yvonne and everyone else who got hung from the trees. They bow respectfully to him. He greets them, telling them this land has neither the light of the king's virtue nor the blessing of the archangels, so it's not good to stay here for long. He says he's repaid their grudges, so they should move on to the afterlife. Sophia then points behind him, and when he turns, he sees a well. He asks if they were trying to give him water, saying they didn't have to and could just go rest. Then he looks inside the well and starts pulling the bucket up, saying he can't wait to drink some water. As soon as he gets to the top, he's surprised, asking, "What is this?" He sees a page in some sand. We learn more about the Herald clan. They were originally a race known as Aragosissa. They crossed a massive typhoon from another continent and landed on the Wibris continent. The 8 divine kings of the Yegas family ruled over the Wibris continent and originally held 8 thrones spread throughout the land. However, during that era, one person monopolized every one of these thrones. The other 7 holy kings, who were brothers, were all subjugated by the emperor of the Yeslat family. As we see him sitting at his throne, the Emperor Yeslat wanted to get rid of all remnants of the deceased holy kings. Meanwhile, the outsiders, the Aragosissa, who eventually became heralds, were in need of land to settle. The Emperor gave the outsiders the grimoire, the Song of the Yellow Bird, and a spirit called the Emperor's Voice. In exchange, the outsiders signed a contract with the Emperor and became heralds. With that, the Aragosissa's hands were ruthlessly stained with God's blood, and they became the Emperor's sword and executioners. They personally executed the wicked nobles who went against the Emperor's law and prospered. It was the most horrific sin the citizens of the Wibris could commit, as they believed in the afterlife and the cycle of eternal life. After a while, the Emperor died, and the empire was separated into 8 kingdoms once again. The Aragosissa were despised by everybody on Wibris, and the heralds fell, being called soulless as they had sold their soul for that bag. Despite that, they faced an unexpected issue. The contract with the Emperor was still in effect even after his death. Heralds needed to serve under the Emperor, as it was a contract that lasted forever. All heralds are bound by this. Azadan picks up the paper, saying it's a page from the Book of the Divine King and that he can feel the Emperor's power from it. He waves off Sophia and Yvonne, telling them to rest in peace. While analyzing the page, he wonders if collecting it means he will be able to escape his curse of duty. The owl tells him it's rude to call it a curse, as it is an honorable contract. Azadan says he can't believe it fell into his hands and that fate is no joke. The owl asks if he's not happy, questioning if this isn't something all heralds desire, as they have 2 goals. 1. To carry out the duties of service and collect 100,000 gold coins. Or 2. To acquire the Book of the Divine King. If you do either, you can escape the curse of duty. Azadan tells him it's part of his goal, but he's worried it's starting to spread throughout the world. The reason the Book of the Divine King was torn apart in the first place was because of his father. As he continues walking through the wasteland, we see someone watching him from afar. It appears to be a blonde woman. She tells someone else, that's him. He's the son of the clan's worst traitor. He's also talentless, powerless, and stupid, stray after stray. She asks a man beside her if he really can't use magic, like the rumors say, wondering if he's cursed. The man says he doesn't know if he's cursed, but he knows for certain that Azadan cannot use magic. The woman says she heard he wet the bed until he was 8 and couldn't even tie a bowstring. She doubts he'll ever be able to carry out the herald's duty. The man calls out to her, and we learn the woman's name is Midiam. He suggests they turn back, saying there's no need for her to work for the lowest-ranking herald. When she's a relative of the contractor, she pulls out an arrow, saying that she wants to test his skills. The man with her says that they can't attack a herald. Midiam asks why it matters. If she wins, she'll take his spot, so they cannot lose. But it will be bad if he dies, though, so she'll take off the arrowhead. The man tells her that he's still a student of the elder causes, and there's always an if in every situation. She says it doesn't matter. No matter how amazing causes is, an idiot is still an idiot, even if he trains for 10 or even 100 years. She just hates the fact that the son of a traitor is a herald, and it makes it worse that he can't use magic and that he's just taking up space so competent people like herself can't become heralds. She then launches an arrow from where she is. As it starts to fly directly toward Azadan's back, she immediately hides behind the rock but wonders if she hit him or not. She peeks over only to get hit straight in the forehead with a rock as Azaden jumps up with him. He starts to crouch down while staring at her, asking if she is the one who shot the arrow. We see he caught it inside of his quiver. Midiam tells him it was a greeting but wonders when he got here, as she could not sense his presence at all. Then she realizes where he caught it, saying that it's absolutely crazy. Azaden asks for their names, and Midiam introduces herself, saying she is of the Ether bloodline and the dude's name is Ishmael, saying that they are assistants who have come to help him. Azaden asks if that's really the case and drops the arrow, saying this doesn't seem like they're assisting him. Midiam tells him that his quiver looked empty, so she just wanted to give him arrows, saying surely that's the best asset. Azaden sighs, saying it seems like she applied to be his assistant because it was boring staying in the Holy Land and telling them to go home, calling them kids. Midiam starts to get pissed, saying that she's sure she told him that she is from the Ether bloodline. He tells her that bloodlines have no meaning to heralds, and if she's come to work for him, she's now his subordinate. Yet she even shot arrows at him. Perhaps she wants him to teach her what happens when you do something like this outside of the Holy Land. She says he's so different from the rumors, asking if it really is the same person who others openly mocked and bullied. Azaden tells her to apologize for being rude, and if she wants something from him, to show respect, either as a member of Aragosasa or as his enemy, asking which it will be. She grits her teeth out of frustration but sets aside her pride a little bit, saying that she's sorry for her rudeness and bows her head. Azaden says he accepts her apology, however, she should never shoot at anyone with her arrows from now on if she doesn't plan on killing them because weapons are not toys outside of the Holy Land. She says okay as Azaden turns. He tells them he won't say anything bad about them, so they can head back to the Holy Land as he doesn't need assistance. Then he realizes he could use this chance, asking them if they have any water. Turns out, she only set her pride aside for so long, as she yells, requesting a duel. Ishmael tries to stop her, telling her that he's actually really dangerous. She says he might be a little different from the rumors as he's actually strong and intelligent, but it would just make her a big coward if she didn't challenge him just because he was strong. She then formally sends a challenge for his position as a herald. As we see her looking up at him, Ishmael starts to cry, saying that now she's done it. Azaden says that's quite crazy to hear and that Aurel has been a bad influence on these kids. He says that if she wins, she'll take his position, but he wonders if she has any idea what will happen if he wins. She says, of course, everything that is hers, including her life, will be his and that she is prepared. As Azaden says that while Aurel is a problem, it's a bigger problem that she's underestimating him. He tells Midiam to give up before it's too late, as Aurel is the only one who can win against a herald. He's aware that he doesn't have the best reputation, but he wasn't given this position for nothing. Midiam then turns, starting to walk away. Ishmael wonders what she's doing. After a bit, she says now they're 100 steps away, and she challenges them once more. The owl then says that the duel has been validated and that he should accept the challenge. They are both surprised to hear the Emperor's voice. Azaden asks if it's serious. Ishmael is terrified and explains that the Emperor's voice is the spirit that is sent to each herald. Since the Emperor's voice is now a witness, turning down the challenge is impossible, and that this is not good. Midiam tells him to stop worrying and that she just has to win. After a bit, we see them handing Azaden water, and he starts chugging the hell out of it while they both look really dirty. Ishmael, a little worried, wonders what is going on with the situation. He says that he used an archery technique suited for the battlefield, sacrificing accuracy for projectile speed. That was definitely an extreme form of the Aragasa technique. As he launched a barrage of rocks at Midiam, she reacted properly by putting up a magic barrier, causing them to deflect off of her, but that wasn't enough as Azaden prepared even more rocks. This time, they curved like snakes, like he demonstrated before. His ability with the bow is nuts. Midiam did her best blocking what she could. We see one of the rocks graze right by her head, almost taking her out. Ishmael says that he thought he could not use magic, but he used the beauty of nature, Yellow Crane, asking how, as Azaden sits there just chugging that shit. Ishmael says not to mention it gets worse as we see Midiam is gassed out. A surprise attack comes from the sky, which she avoids, but runs forward, saying that now she knows where his position is. She's staring at a rock, and of course, Azaden comes out from behind it. She says that her prediction was perfect and that she's got him now, and swings her blade forward, cutting him in half. That's none other than some of his fog as we see his form dissipated away from it. Midiam is confused as Ishmael yells, telling her to turn around. She does so, putting up another magic circle, but Azaden pushes her hand away and grabs onto it, rearing back his fist. He tells her that with this, it is over. We see her looking worried as she gets sent flying into the nearby rock. She almost got screwed. Ishmael looks pissed and starts screaming his name, saying that he can't believe somebody of a traitor's blood just hit a child of the noblest bloodline. He runs at him, saying, "This is unforgivable," asking how somebody inferior such as himself could do this. But the owl speaks, saying with this, the duel is now over. Turns out, she lost the duel. The owl says that Midiam challenged his position, and since Azaden won, her fate is now in his hands. Ishmael, due to the interference in the duel, is also to become the herald's property along with Midiam. As she sits there, making a face full of anger and humiliation, she reaches to her waist, grabbing onto a dagger and immediately going to stab herself in the throat. But Azaden throws a rock, knocking it out of her hands, and after it hits the floor, he says he knew she'd try some stupid thing. She drops to her knees, feeling hopeless. Azaden says that she does not even have the right to die now that she lost the duel, and she can only die when he does or when he wants her to, asking if she really challenged him to a duel without knowing something like this. Of course, she says she did, which now just makes her seem annoying because she's a sore loser. Azaden sighs, saying that she sure is an interesting kid. At least he throws the water pouch back to Ishmael, saying that he assumes that was enough to teach them a lesson and he'll free them both now. They're confused, asking if he's serious, and he says he just wants to pretend the duel never happened, and it would be bad for them if this went down in the records. They both sit there and realize he's right, not saying anything. Then Azaden heads out, making his way back across the wasteland. But, of course, they're still following him. He says he told them he doesn't need slaves and that he's given them freedom so they can go back to the Holy Land. Midiam says that he just got himself a beautiful and talented young girl as a slave, and yet he's just going to let her go, asking if he's crazy. Ishmael cringes, saying that this is some severe second-hand embarrassment. Azaden says he doesn't know about the beautiful part, but if she was as talented as Arl, she would never have lost. He adds that there are many dudes who like younger girls, as there are many cultures with early marriage customs, though he is not with that. So, it would be wise to think before she proposes a duel next time. It would be better if she never challenged someone to a duel again, and if there's someone she wants to fight, she should just assassinate them. Ishmael says he talks a lot more than he expected, but it doesn't seem like he's saying all this out of genuine concern. He then turns, noticing Midiam shaking, and we see her blushing, saying, "This is new." Ishmael just wonders what the hell is going on. We finally learn about the contract of service between the Emperor and the Aragosasa clan, each providing the other with what they need, and any traitor will meet a horrific death. This contract was once a symbol of loyalty and a mark of honor, but after the Emperor's death, it became a dreadful curse, which we already know about. Even after his death, they are still forced into it. What seemed like an unending cycle of servitude for this clan finally began to show signs of breaking when the Herald clan intervened in the Terrasar Kingdom Succession War. The Aragosasa secured victory in the Succession War and obtained a copy of the Book of the Divine King. However, a notorious traitor stole the book and fled, and his name was Aker. We see some men yelling at him from above a cliff, saying that he needs to return what he stole. If not, they will curse him. He needs to hand over his copy of the book, or else they will torture him. They threatened Aker with anything they could possibly think of, but their hopes shattered to pieces and disappeared because Aker scattered the book in the heart of the World Mountain Range. Aker became the first person to die from the curse of the contract. Because of the curse, he gave birth to twins in a male body. What a way to go out. Those twins were both Azaden and Arl. Ironically, Arl became the strongest herald in the clan's history, whereas Azaden was rumored to be a fool. Midiam just wonders who spread such a stupid rumor, as he's nothing like they say. Azaden then tells them he already said that he has no intentions of taking them in, so to stop following him. Midiam says they're not following him, they just have something to deliver. It's a letter from the regional head of Salasma. Azaden says they don't like him that much, wondering what it could be. He decides to ignore about half of it since it's just them flaming him, but it tells him that copies of the book have been appearing recently, so he needs to retrieve them, and it will be reflected in his performance review. Judging from what's written here, the other heralds must be aware of this copy. Azaden wonders if it's true and asks them if they were aware of the copies of the book. They both say they are. Midiam says that she knows his father betrayed the clan, and before she can finish her sentence, Ishmael yells and kicks her in the leg with a "Shut the hell up." She asks what that was for and just kind of stares at her. Azaden says he doesn't really care about it, saying that this just confirms he didn't know about it, and for now, he'll have to head to Salasma to meet the regional head. He thanks them for delivering the letter. Midiam says that they're heading to the same destination, so they can just follow him, and they could tell him what's been happening in the clan too. He says that he does not own the road, so they are free to do as they wish. As they walk, she quickly runs over happily, while Ishmael sighs out of relief. Sometime later, they finally make it towards the edge of the wasteland and are now about to enter a grassy area. Now they have mounts too. While Azaden is sleeping, he wakes up and hits a fat post-nap stretch, telling the other two to get up as well. They continue walking with their new llamas, and he tells them that there's a spring up ahead. They're both still sleepy, but they see water for the first time in a while. They both start refilling their water pouches, and Azaden straight up puts that in a giant bag. Somebody then yells, calling out to them, asking who gave them permission to take water from their spring. Azaden says he has no intention of fighting, asking what they want. The dude says he wants all of them while smiling evilly. Azaden just wants to double check, asking if there is no room for negotiations. The dude says that he sure talks a lot for a grown man and asks what the deal with the mask is and if he is a clown. The leader then tells his men to go capture the girl and kill the other two. Of course, they get off-screened, and judging by their poses, it looks like they got nut cracked. The other dudes start bowing and apologizing, saying they're innocent people. Ishmael says he thought they were bandits, and they say they only just recently were conscripted, as Margrave Kazel's children are drafting people left and right. They still wonder how they were meant to find something like that, so they just wander aimlessly. By sheer misfortune. The dude corrects himself, saying great fortune. They encountered someone as noble as themselves. Midiam asks if they could just be thieves coming up with excuses. Azaden says he doubts it, as this isn't a road where merchants or travelers pass by. She says in that case, they'll just have to kill them in silence. She draws her blade, but Azaden says he does not kill without reason. She's surprised, and Ishmael says it's only right to kill them. Even if they're truly good people, there's a chance they could expose their tracks if they were left alive. Azaden says that doesn't mean he should kill them for his own comfort and that everybody deserves a second chance. One of the wannabe bandits starts saying that he's right and that people's lives are important. He was expecting that from someone so noble. The leader starts laughing, saying he's the best, and he assures him that great fortune will be upon him and his family for their mercy. Azaden tells him to shut the hell up. Ishmael thinks about how he often sees some people who refuse to kill, but he didn't expect to see one from the Herald clan. Azaden hits him straight in the face, just like he did the rest. As we see the dude's eye explode, he says that was a pretty good hit, and he could feel that the dude's eye got crushed. He tells them to make sure not to move too much, as one wrong move and it won't just be their eye, their brain will probably explode too. They say that he promised to let them live, and he says that this is them living, but after inflicting permanent damage so they can't harm others even if they don't repent immediately. They wonder what they just heard just now, but Midiam and Ishmael are sitting there saying that this is still not that bad of an outcome, while Azaden just watches. Sometime later, the dude starts running away, and it turns out he did crush 3 of their nuts and blinded the other ones. One of the nutcracker victims says if he meets him again, he'll make sure to pay him back. But we see a giant, gory hand reaching forward, palming the dude's head, only for it to be ripped off by this giant troll-like creature. They turn in horror, and the dude is lifted into the air as the troll says he found himself some food. He starts throwing them into his giant basket, saying that today has been a really good hunt. He then grabs another one, saying that he's not going to escape, and throws him in his backpack as well. The goblins start eating the dude who had his head exploded because he had to keep other fed too. Then they spot a village off in the distance, and the ogre trolls start smiling, saying that the fortress is going to have so much food as they continue riding on their mounts. Midiam says at first she thought he was just going easy, so she was surprised, but she guesses it wasn't a bad tactic as they even retrieved all of the weapons. Azadan says it is hard for one to understand others without having been in the same position, and losing an eye has bigger consequences than you would think. The people they would have victimized for their raids are not people they fear, and he's sure it's a good opportunity for them to repent. Ishmael is surprised that he gave them the opportunity to repent. It's funny that a herald is giving somebody else the chance to cleanse their soul. They start hopping off their mounts. Azadan says that the conversation is bothering him. Midiam asks what he means. He says that they said that Margrave Kazel is searching for a copy of the Book of the Divine King. Ishmael says that Kazel lost the succession fight, asking if he thinks that he's trying to climb up the ranks by using the book. Azadan says that sounds pretty dangerous, so he'll have to take off this mask, as it shows that he's a herald, and they will have to be careful until they're out of Kazel's territory. We see both of their faces absolutely surprised at the fact that Azadan doesn't even have eyes, as we only see a scar across his face. They're both just standing there with their jaws dropped as he puts on a robe to further his disguise. Ishmael says that he doesn't seem to struggle at all despite being unable to see, asking how. Azadan says that he doesn't know either. Ever since he was born, he has been able to see without eyes. Midiam runs up to Azadan, and he wonders what she wants, saying to speak her mind. She says that she just thinks that he probably looks better with this scar. He asks what she means, and she says that he was probably really hot and then suffered an accident where he lost his eyes. It feels like it's better to have scars like this than a hot face with ugly eyes. Ishmael says that she's being very rude, but Azadan says she's saying the same thing as the one who gave him the wound on his face. She's surprised, asking who it was, and he says that it was none other than Aurel. As we see him bleeding from his face, Azadan explains that she said it is strange for him to not have what should be there and that she can at least imagine that there used to be eyes where they should be if she scars it. She sliced through his face, saying that it would be for the best. But thanks to that, he's able to pretend that he is blind and didn't face any problems when he was alone. Midiam says that just means that they need to pretend he's blind too, and he tells them that it's fine as they walk forward towards that same fortress that the ogre thing saw as well. That night, they finally arrive, and the guards are doing inspections out front. Ishmael says that he can see the gates, but the line looks pretty long. Azadan says it's been a while since he was last here at the gateway to the East Village. Midiam says it's also the village where the Imperial Road begins and that it's a pretty good starting point for their journey. He tells her to shut up, as he's on a pilgrimage, a solo one, and that they are just some kids who happen to join him. He then notices something, calling Ishmael, puppy eyes, asking if this is how it was when he was last here, as the guards are doing a very thorough investigation, even stealing some stuff by pocketing it. Midiam says they're just stealing, and Ishmael says it wasn't this bad when he was last here. Azadan says he sees, and if they're looking at it thoroughly, then he might have an idea. One of the men in line asks if he can't see, and Azadan says he cannot and that these two are on a pilgrimage with him. The man says that must be pretty hard, and Azadan says not at all, asking what's going on. The man asks if he's not heard of the rumors that there are copies of the Book of the Divine King going around. The rumors say that some Herald clan member made copies of the book after stealing it, and that these copies are appearing everywhere. All the bastard sons under Kazel are hunting for it currently, and it is just a complete mess. Azadan says, that means there is more than just that one loser I met. The dude asks what he means, but Azadan says it was nothing. This isn't good, Azadan thinks, because he is one of the pages on him, so this is going to be annoying to deal with. The guy who is getting stolen from says he needs that to feed his family, saying that they're looking for the Book of the Divine King, asking why they're taking his money. The guard punches him in the face, saying, let go, causing the dude to fall to the floor. He says a grimoire can take many shapes and forms, and who knows if his grimoire is in the shape of money. They'll inspect it real close and return it if it is not the book they're seeking. His daughter then steps up, saying, this is stealing, so give it back. They then start insulting her, asking if she's really talking back. If she is, then that means she needs a beating, one says. Her father hugs her, saying that they're threatening a young child with violence. They tell him to shut up, hitting him in the stomach. She starts comforting her dad, and the guard says that he should do a better job of raising his child. They call for the next people to step up. We see Midiam, and she's hella pissed. Ishmael asks what they should do, and Midiam wonders if they should fight. But Azadan says to wait. A man then runs up, whispering something to the guard, which startles him. Azadan can tell this isn't a good thing as everybody starts panicking, grabbing what they can and running inside. Everybody else wonders what is going on. Azadan then tells them that an ogre was spotted nearby. They ask what he means, and he tells them that he has really good hearing and overheard that there was an ogre. This is why they ended up closing the gates. We see them all looking worried, with everybody banging on the gate, saying, "We can talk about this, so let us inside." It then jumps to a carriage as we see a man approach it. We are introduced to another one of Kazel's bastard children, named Tarkiv. He asks, did they close the gates? They say they did. He says, since they have confirmed there are no copies here, we should just head out with the things we took. A man then runs over, calling out to Tarkiv, asking, what should I do now? Tarkiv tells him they need to fend off the ogre and any other monsters that get close to the gate. Since they have been trained sufficiently to deal with them, they should be okay. The man worries because they only got trained for a day and says, we should at least let the people from the outside come in. I'll command the defense here. Tarkiv sighs, saying, you're not even a knight. What are you capable of? The man doesn't want to hear this from a knight who is running away. But Tarkiv says, I'll leave it to you, and that's good enough. As they ride off, the man watches and sweats nervously as he can feel the ground shaking. The birds nearby start to flee, too, showing it's getting close. It jumps to one of the wannabe bandits in the basket, wondering if they are going to be eaten. We see them shaking in fear. He peeks out from the side, surprised to spot a whole group of goblins following the ogre. Azadan and the rest stand before the gate, helplessly waiting for the ogre and his little army to arrive. It turns out people decided that it was time to leave, and we see them holding torches, walking the trail of tears. A woman turns, holding a lantern, telling Azadan, the road is going to be rougher from now on. She hands Ishmael a lantern, saying, you should guide your younger sister and uncle well, and this should help you do it. He thanks her, saying, I'll take care of my uncle, so please don't worry. Midiam laughs while patting Azadan's back and says, it looks like people will act much nicer if you play blind. Back at the gates before they left, we see the guy who was talking to Tarkiv saying that the knights and mercenaries all ran. However, he must remind everybody here to protect the village. They ask those who can fight to remain and help. It's all right to just provide support, he says. That way, while we defend the village, they will be able to flee a little faster. The dude who was getting his shit rocked earlier tells his daughter, Kozel, that he will fight and protect her. She asks, what are you talking about? You can't even cut an apple. Azadan thinks about the people who decided to stay and fight. Midiam says, I can't believe the knights that live to serve the people are casting out everybody. That's just disgraceful and pathetic. Azadan says, they may be the people of Wibris, but rather than casting out the people there to protect, they seem to think of it as a wonderful deed to stay back and fight. She says, I guess so. It would be odd for an Aragosisan to sympathize with the people of Wibris. Azadan says he feels that way as well, and then he tells them it's time for them to part ways. As his ghost-like aura starts to appear, he vanishes, leaving only his stick behind. They yell, asking, where did he go? Back at the fortress, we see everybody standing guard. Cosette's dad tells the captain that there are too many of them. We see it's not just goblins, but there are also orcs with the ogre. The ogre yells, saying that his name is Goldu. He throws his basket of people on the floor, saying that he stores meat, and it keeps him fed for a long time. If they invest in my food market, it would be good, he says. But of course, he is speaking in small words like, human village big. Strong fort. We see him raise his foot and stomp it down, saying, I'm going to take as many as I can with me. The captain says, the ogre is their leader. Everybody, fire your arrows and shoot him. As they release their bows, the arrows start to fly in. Most of them fall completely short of the castle, whereas some actually manage to hit Goldu, landing all over. A little goblin with a staff starts to smirk behind the basket and tells Goldu to take this chance to smash through the gate as the entire army also begins to charge forward. The captain yells, saying that they need to take care of the ones that are charging. As the arrows fly in, they begin blocking them with their shield fields. One of the goblins raises its axe and starts smashing away at the gate. Goldu grabs onto a nearby boulder and begins running up, only to yeet it directly into the wall. Some of the debris even causes friendly fire. The people on the other side of the gate are doing their best to keep it up, and the captain begins to panic, screaming that they need to shoot them. Cosette's father raises his bow into the air, hoping that his daughter has gotten far enough away that, when they inevitably die, she'll still be safe. Meanwhile, the little shaman behind the basket prepares another spell. As fire ignites on its staff, it realizes its time and shoots it directly into the air, saying the wand has responded and that the Book of the Divine King is here. That, it claims, is the only reason it would activate. The shaman gets stomped in the face, causing it to fall to the ground. Azaden uses the basket to fly up into the air above Goldu, who is readying another boulder. Goldu yeets it directly toward Cosette's dad and another citizen. The boulder explodes, but Azaden manages to take them out of harm's way. He then lets them go, and the captain is surprised to see someone arrive to help them. Azaden says he's going to aid them in defending the gate, but the captain wonders who he is. Azaden replies that he's just a passing herald of the emperor. They start to feel terrified, asking if he means a member of the Herald clan, but he doesn't answer, already readying his bow. Azaden jumps off the castle wall and fires 2 rapid shots. The arrows fly directly into Goldu's eyes, blinding him. Goldu screams out in pain and starts slamming the ground, saying he's going to kill Azaden but only ends up killing his allies. Azaden lands on Goldu's head while Goldu, still swinging blindly, stomps forward, killing the goblins underneath him. Azaden says this is exactly what he was hoping for and that he's glad this thing is dumb. He pulls back more arrows and fires them forward, killing some goblins. The captain wonders if Azaden is really a slayer of sanctity and why he would be helping them unless he has been contracted. The basket falls over, and when Azaden turns to look at it, he sees one of the wannabe bandits from earlier crawling out. The bandit has tears in his eyes and is completely terrified. What he sees in front of him is the shaman, who he thought was dead, slowly transforming. The shaman speaks about the Book of the Divine King, salivating as his arm grows grotesque and mangled. He declares that he will be the king of the Fang. He turns into some kind of nasty tentacle monster with teeth, chanting that he will be the king of the Fang. Before the monster can act further, it gets decapitated. Parts of the tentacle monster lie on the ground now. Azaden comments that it's going to be a pain as the remains start expanding and shooting out. One of the monster's tentacle launches forward toward Goldu. Azaden notices this and jumps off Goldu's head, leaving Goldu to be eaten by it. As the tentacle monster starts ripping him apart, Goldu screams, saying it hurts. He tries crawling away, saying he likes eating but doesn't like being eaten. The monster completely engulfs him like a snake. Rest in peace, Goldu. Eat in the afterlife. Azaden lands on the ground, staring at the monster as it slowly starts to transform into a different shape. It continues morphing into something else. The citizens look terrified as Azaden recognizes it as Godkin Kurt, the king of the Fang. The monster swells up, and the shaman from earlier arises out of it, holding his staff. The shaman begins laughing and smiling while the staff lights up once more, shooting a beam that guides itself to a page. It fires at Azaden, who wonders if it's after the page. The shaman declares that the servants of Jaegers should hand him the book and promises to kill them quickly and painlessly. Before the shaman can finish his sentence, an arrow flies by, almost finishing the job. Azaden wasn't even giving it a chance to monologue. God King Kurt starts to get pissed by this. Azaden realizes he has no more arrows but knows the monster is after the page. Kurt attacks Azaden with one of its tentacle, which he sidesteps. Azaden wonders why they are searching for copies of the Divine King anyway. He continues evading attack after attack, but the monster's allies aren't safe either. Some are caught in the crossfire. One of them has purple liquid rain on it, which starts burning it. God King Kurt yells, calling Azaden impudent, and unleashes even more tentacle. Azaden runs away and notices a sword blocking his path. He grabs the sword, realizing he has to fight. Raising it, he begins fighting off the tentacle. As demonstrated earlier, Azaden is not just skilled with a bow, he's exceptionally good with a sword. He starts slicing the monster's claws one after another, saying its fangs are too big for its body. As the fangs fall, he declares that fangs with shallow roots are weak. God King Kurt tells him to shut up, reminding him that he is the king of the fang. Kurt sends out even more tentacle, thinking quantity is better than quality. Azaden laughs, saying no, Kurt is just a worthless kin created by the king of the fang. This time, Azaden doesn't stop at cutting off the tentacle, he cuts one in half entirely. However, the sword gets corroded by the purple liquid, so he throws it away, knowing it wouldn't last long anyway. Kurt takes this chance to attack with even more tentacle, seeing that Azaden has no weapon. Azaden admits that he's working at a loss by doing this without even receiving gold coins. The villagers decide it's finally time to help. They launch a barrage of arrows, pushing Kurt backward and buying Azaden time. The captain says they must help the herald no matter what happens. The villagers note that helping the herald clan feels strange, and they worry that if the king's church hears about this, they will be charged and executed. He says they were abandoned by those very people, wondering why they should fear their punishment when they gave up on them. They realize he's right, and Cosette's father draws his bow, saying that he doesn't want to die here. As he launches the first arrow, he readies another one, saying they're just attacking monsters, and after they kill it, they can go for the herald clan member or whatever next. They all start agreeing with him, saying that's the perfect plan, and this is why they decided to help him in the first place. As Kurt is getting riddled with arrows now, Azaden sighs, saying they should have just given him the arrows to begin with. He stretches, saying that he guesses it's time to get started. He picks up one of the fangs off the ground and throws it forward, exploding where it lands. He starts to laugh, saying this much should be enough. He raises another one and starts rapid firing them off, one after the other, and it turns out this is what he was planning for when he cut them off earlier. Kurt starts to get pissed, asking how dare he. Azaden asks why he's so mad, saying that he's just returning his fangs. Kurt yells, saying that he's going to become an even greater being than he is now. Azaden raises a giant one this time and throws it forward, saying surely Kurt understands that he's a slayer of sanctity, as we see it go straight through Kurt's skull. That is brutal. He then raises another one, saying that his job is to eliminate things like this, as he throws this one forward, cutting off Kurt's head as it bounces along the floor. It comes to a stop. We see that in its final moments, it was pure anger. The monster then starts to crumble on itself, falling apart, and he says, with this, it's over, as he goes to reach for the staff, only to hear the captain yell out, calling him a soulless heathen. When he turns around, they're all raising their arrows at him. As Azaden says, that's pretty rude, and they might make a mistake and fire. The captain asks what he's planning and why he helped them with the monsters. The villagers start saying that he probably brought them here, saying that no matter how they think about it, it's weird that they would only show up when he did, and that it's all his fault to begin with. Azaden thinks about how to reply to this dumbass situation. Azaden stands there while they continuously berate him, saying that he must be the reason they're here. But, of course, he doesn't know why the monster arrived either. As they all know, he just fulfilled his duties according to the golden coins, and that someone used one to make a wish for them. They are surprised, asking who wished to the demon of the golden coin. They start to panic, wondering who it could be, saying they know they've been struggling, but to wish for the Herald clan is too much. One of the men asks if that person is present currently, and he says he's not obligated to tell them that, nor does he have the authority to do so. They start to panic, and he asks if he can leave now or will they fight him for the king's church, despite having been raided by the noble bastard clan and abandoned. One of the citizens tells him to stop talking badly about their faith, and Azaden laughs, saying, of course, they are faithful citizens, as he walks away. We see the wannabe bandit still alive, asking if it's finally over, and he looks over only to spot Azaden and gets terrified that he lived. Azaden tells him to be kind, as he has been given a second opportunity at life. He starts crying. Azaden leaves and jumps off the ground, dashing up to the castle wall. As they point their bows at him, the captain yells, telling them not to attack. Azaden steps down, grabbing a handful of arrows out of their giant quiver. He says he's just going to take a few, asking if that's okay. The captain thanks him, and Azaden calls him a fool, saying if the right person had him, he definitely would have been executed. But we see him smiling back on the trail that everybody was walking. We see it empty as Azaden is darting through the forest with the owl right behind him. The owl asks why he lied to them, and he says that they would have lived in fear because they had gotten involved with him. The owl asks if he doesn't resent them, as they treated him like shit even though he saved them. He tells them that humans are weak, and either way, they were nice to him when he was pretending to be blind, so they do deserve to be praised. But he is pretty tired because he had to run all the way here, and it's even worse that he had to do it without being paid a golden coin. Then he spots something up ahead, as it's none other than Midian and Ishmael. He tells them that he hunted a kin. They say killing a Kurt kin sounds intense, but he tells them that it wasn't actually that strong. Ishmael starts to think about the situation, saying that he wasted his energy, yet he didn't even get paid. Azadan says that Midian told him it was a beautiful thing to help and protect the people, and life is not fun without the right outlook. Midian laughs, saying that Ishmael has never been a fun guy. She just wonders why he's catching strays. Azadan says that saying how they are alone means that the other evacuees let them leave. She says they tried to stop them at first, but they told them that they were going to go back and help them fight off the weak monsters. They even gave them a torch so they wouldn't get lost in the darkness, which was kind of them, but it was only because they didn't know that they were Aragosasa. Midian starts saying that it was only because she is pretty, and Azadan laughs, saying surely it's because she was a kid and not because of them finding her pretty. She says she's 13, and there's a queen in the north who's already married at her age. Azadan then asks if they recognize the staff while holding it out. She says that it looks like a magic wand. He then tells them that the Kurtkin had it. She says she's going to have to concentrate really hard for this one, but she doesn't have the stamina to do it at the moment. Then she realizes something, asking if he is acknowledging her as a subordinate. He says surely he can just ask a favor from a fellow kinsfolk. She says that she wants him to do a favor too, and he says sure, and she can just inspect it tomorrow then. He jumps off the ground, up into a tree as she asks where he's going. He says that he needs to hurry and to follow him. She asks why they're in a hurry, and we see the evacuees again. The woman who was kind to them earlier spots him, asking when he got here, saying that the kids were looking for him. He says he got a bit lost, but they're smart kids, so they'll catch up soon. More importantly, he heard shouts of victory from the village. She asks what he means, and he says, as they know, he is really good at hearing, and it'll probably be okay if they just return to the village for now. Asking if she can reach them from here with something like lantern signals, she thinks about it, and then one of the evacuees yells, saying he sees something, as it's lanterns by the gate, and they are now on. That the vigilante committee must have really succeeded. Everybody starts to get happy, and Azadan tells her that she should send a small group of people to check. When she turns, going to thank him, she sees that he's completely vanished, wondering where he went. Of course, he just wanted to help them so they weren't separated from their loved ones, and he's too lazy for all of this. If he lays down, he would definitely pass out. He then spots smoke on the mountains, wondering what it is. So he goes to check it out, and we see him come to a stop as he's looking down at a campfire with soldiers. It's the dudes who ran away from the town. They say a drought and an ogre shore are crazy things to happen back to this territory, and that this place is done for. They just need to do one big job and get out of here. Azadan realizes that the bastard son must be here too. Inside the only tent with lights on, we see some valuables on the crates, and Azadan says that he's out of money. The owl tells him that with this, he's hit the jackpot, as he is also ready for him to take this. Azadan says that traveling does require a lot of money, and this is actually a blessing. We hear Tarkiv yelling, asking if they're kidding him and that their loot got stolen, as that's the only reason he's hired them. They tell him that they were ambushed, as they didn't even have time to respond. He calls out to one of the men, telling him to say something, as it's his responsibility. We see the dude eating an apple, saying if he says so, then it must definitely be his fault. Tarkiv says that he's going to cut the salaries of these two, asking if he has any complaints with that. The dude tells him to do what he wants. However, one of his belongings has also gone missing, which means it's not the work of a mere thief. Tarkiv asks what he lost, and he says he's not going to tell him that. He tells him it's probably nothing important, so it doesn't matter. The dude then tells Tarkiv that the little thief will probably move to the next village and to issue a conscription order on that village with his authority. He says that the closest village is a public stage station, and that it's managed by a noble, so it would be difficult to do so. He asks the dude why he's ordering him around, reminding him that he's the boss here. The dude smiles, saying that's fine, and he'll just plunder that place in his name then, and stabs Tarkiv in the stomach with his knife. Tarkiv looks down, panicked, asking why he would do something like this. Even his men are confused, asking what's wrong. We see the dude's eyes glow green, and he tells them not to worry, as that dagger was a gift from a witch. As it starts to release a purple aura, it transforms into a spider and digs into his skin. Tarkiv starts to freak out. I would too. The captain tells him that he should be fine for now, and Tarkiv yells, asking him what he did to him. The dude then whistles as Tarkiv starts to feel a gut-wrenching pain, and he falls to the floor. The man tells him to relax, saying the spider in his body just gave him a little sting and that is all, and that he's just going to have to listen to him carefully, or else the spider will start laying eggs inside of him. And once they hatch, it will surely be a spectre. He asks what the hell he wants from him, and even the other soldiers look worried about what to do. The captain puts his arm on his shoulder, saying that he's going to plunder the public stage station and capture the little rat who stole his belonging. Tarkiv looks absolutely mortified. It jumps to somewhere else as we see Ishmael and Midian sleeping on their mount. Al tells them to get the hell up, and we see them do exactly that, listening to it. Midian notices something, calling out to his Azadan, asking why he has 2 staffs now. He says that when he looted the mercenary supplies yesterday, he found the same one, and to him, it looks almost identical to the one the goblin shaman was using, telling her to take a look. Ishmael snatches it, saying that he'll do it, as it may be cursed. He starts to imbue his mana into it, checking the properties of the staff, and Azadan asks what he sees. He says that there's a mental image of green and black. Azadan says if it was the king of the Fang, shouldn't he see red mana? Asking if it belonged to a different Kurt, Ishmael says it does, and its purpose is to search for a specific target. It's made to point at something, and it's not durable, though, so it's going to break easily. Regardless though, its creator is definitely really skilled, as it seems to have been crafted hastily, yet its performance far surpasses that of most magic tools. Azadan says it's a wand created to track the pages from the Book of the Divine King, and since there is more than one of these, it just means that he's going to have to deal with even more trackers. For now, he wants to go take a look at those he just stole from. We see him looking at the mercenary encampment from a treetop, saying that this is pretty bothersome, as the atmosphere seems to have changed drastically from last night, as they're preparing for a battle, and their purpose must also be to collect the copy, the same as the goblin shaman. He expected them to do something after losing the wand, but for them to retaliate like this is not what he expected. Ishmael and Midian appear, asking him how it is, and Midian asks what he saw. He says they're planning to attack the next village. She says that it's a public stage station, though. Ishmael says that its scale is much bigger than an average village as well. Midian says that they can't be doing this Russell's sly, and they must have a reason to become this desperate. Azadan says maybe they do, as we see him putting on his disguise again. He starts walking forward, and he takes off his mask while holding both the wand and page close to his chest. As they make their way to the next village, they were not lying. This village is absolutely filled to the brim with people, but the guards aren't doing thorough inspections like the other ones. The guard tells Azadan to be careful since he is blind, and Azadan thanks him, and they leave. Midian says that she's glad they let blind pilgrims in for free. As they make their way down the market, both Ishmael and Midian look really happy. Ishmael gets excited, saying that he spotted a wagon from the Kashar Peers Association, and Midian says this means they can take a break as they look ahead at the association. Azadan thinks about it, wondering if it's going to be that good of an idea as they start walking over. We get a flashback to a kid talking to Aurel, asking if she's really the youngest herald, but reminding her that she's still the child of a traitor, so she shouldn't be full of herself. The man explains that the greatest genius of the clan, who became a herald at the age of 3, is what the adults called Aurel back then, and in his youth, he had to learn the truth of it through a broken ankle. But that wasn't all, as Aurel was far more than just what the rumors made her out to be. He thought she was hella pretty and couldn't take his eyes off of her. The man then opens his eyes, wondering what she's doing right now. He then hears some sound outside, wondering what that is. We go back to a few hours ago when Azadan and the others arrived in town. They made it to the Kashar Peddlers Association. It began as a small association of merchants but grew and is now known as a great organization. In truth, it is one of the ghost organizations run by the Herald clan, in other words, the Aragosasa people. Thus, all of the merchants of the association are Aragosasans, and we see them looking away from Azaden. Of course, they don't like him because his father is a traitor. Azaden says it would be nice if they could lay low today. Both Midiam and Ishmael can't wait to take a bath. We then hear some people calling out to them, asking if it's really Sir Azaden of the 1008 spirit. They ask him if the last 3 months of pretending to be a herald have served him well. He doesn't reply, and then they continue laughing at the fact that he has servants, saying he sure is talented. He tells them that these children are not his servants and that he needs help changing the goat's horseshoes, saying surely they can do that much. They say, of course, and if he's the one asking, they have to, but all in a very sarcastic tone. Azaden hands him a bag, telling him to exchange it for money and asking if they can get him some Blue River arrowheads, if they're in stock. The dude gets right into his face, saying that he only became a herald thanks to Elder Causas's recommendation. Even though the formal procedures were done, it doesn't help that he fell behind in his basic training. They continue mocking him, saying that he must have stolen the items from his bag. Azaden tells them that he needs a change of clothes, asking if he can borrow some and if they can wash the ones he is wearing. Ishmael whispers to Midiam, saying that he knew this would happen, but this is pretty bad. She says that regardless of his birth circumstances, he's still a herald, and helping them is their duty. They throw him a dress, telling him that this is his change of clothes. When he looks down at it, he asks if they could stop being childish since he doesn't exactly want to beat their ass. They ask, what the hell is he yapping about, and if he thinks they're acting like servants because he's so great. They say he never would have made it as one of the 108 spirits if he wasn't lucky. Midiam says if they're this frustrated, why not resolve it with a duel? Or are they scared because of the duel's risk? She says they sure are good, but only at running their mouths. Azaden thinks that she shouldn't be the one telling them about the duel's risk when she was the one who lost, too. The dude approaches her, saying that she's only saying this because she doesn't know anything about Azaden, as he couldn't take a single punch. She asks if that's really the case and dashes off the ground up into the air, landing on the dude's back, holding a knife to his throat. He asks what she's doing, calling her, "Little Miss," and she says surely he doesn't understand the situation he's in. She tells him that she is of Ether descent and how a mere servant dares to make such sarcastic remarks. She says if he doesn't like Azaden, then he should step forward and prove himself with actions rather than words, and that it's a joke to think that Azaden couldn't take a punch. She asks if he's really looking down this much on heralds before people start to approach, and Ishmael looks nervous. Midiam is still pissed. We see the dude from earlier, saying that it seems as if things have gotten a little too heated, and he tells Azaden, it's been a while. Azaden says it has, and the dude asks for Midiam's name, and she tells him. He introduces himself as Derek of Savan and says he'll apologize in place of his comrade, asking if she could please stop, as he doesn't wish for his clansmen to spill blood. She moves the blade away from his throat and dismounts by leaping backward. The dude says that she definitely already spilled his blood as we see a little bit from his neck. His friend tells him to just spit on it. Pause. Derek calls out to them, and their names are Pito and Kosherats. He tells them to devote themselves to the association's duty. As Derek passes by Azaden, he tells him to wash up and come over, as he wants to have dinner together. Azaden wonders why he's bothering but says, sure. That night, Azaden is back in his room after taking a bath, saying that he feels refreshed after soaking for a while. We see scars all over his body. Ishmael calls out to him, asking why he just stood there, saying even if it's because of the circumstances of his birth, Arl, who shares his blood, is revered, and he heard that those who challenge her or make remarks about her are immediately punished for it. He says that she has her own way of doing things. Azaden says that's why he should hurry and convince Midiam so they can be on their way, or else they'll grow old like him. That night, he heads over to Derek's tent. Derek has dinner prepared. We see a question that surprises Azaden to the point that his food falls out of a spoon. It's Derek asking him if he's heard anything about Arl. He says he hasn't, and he wonders why he's still asking him. Derek says surely he's concerned about his older sister. Azaden says, considering her abilities, she's not someone worth worrying about. Derek says this is unbelievable. He came here, and the first thing he did was attack members of the association. As he reaches for the apples, Derek grabs onto them, pulling them away, saying that Azaden should start talking about his work already. Azaden tells him that he's doing his work properly and he's collecting gold coins. Derek says he's talking about business, asking what happened to attacking the other merchant associations and keeping them in check. Azaden sighs, telling him to look at this, asking if he's seen anything like this, as it's none other than the staff he got. Derek says he has, and the Kurt Godkin bishops use this tool to search for the copy of the Book of the Divine King, and that is why Midiam is here, as she was delivering a letter from the district's leader. Azaden says he's surprised everybody knows. Derek tells him he's the only one who doesn't because he hasn't been making his reports, and bringing in a swan is a good contribution, though it would have been the best if he had brought anything related to the Divine King's copy. Azaden says that he did, as he reaches and grabs an apple. Derek is completely surprised, asking what he means. Azaden says this must mean all the other heralds came back empty-handed. Before he can eat the apple, Derek grabs onto his hand, telling him to hand that copy over immediately. Azaden is just confused, wondering why he wants it. We see that even though it's nighttime, the market is still bustling, and Ishmael and Midiam are outside tending to the mounts. They then hear Derek yelling out Azaden's name, and we see him actually panicked. Azaden stares at him, and Derek asks if he's saying he doesn't trust him. He can protect the copy much better than someone as powerless as himself. Azaden says surely it would be more difficult for him. One of the bastard sons of Margrave Kazel, along with his group, is heading this way, and among them are heretics that follow Kurt. Derek scoffs, asking if he really thinks they'd lose against them. He might have lost to Arl, but he is a former herald. Azaden says that's the problem. Surely he thinks there would be rumors if a bunch of merchants fought too well. Derek tells him that's not what's important, as protecting the copies is all that matters. Plus, he is much weaker than Arl. Azaden says he's referring to when they were all kids, as he was no match for his sister when he was younger. Compared to how he was back then, he's become way stronger, but Arl is now the strongest warrior of their kind, with countless followers at her feet. It's been years since he last saw her, so he can't even imagine how much stronger she'd be now. He says he's going to hand over the copy to the regional manager himself, and that would be for the best. Derek starts to get annoyed, reminding him that he's a senior. One of the merchants runs in, saying there's a problem and that there's stuff going down at the eastern gates. It jumps to the eastern gates of the city as we see a group of soldiers waiting there. One of them is surprised as we see Tarkiv and his men pulling up. He says there are too many of them to pass through, telling them to camp somewhere else and come back tomorrow. Tarkiv laughs, telling the guard Jaren that he has done some good work and to take this as a token of gratitude for all of his hard work today. Handing him a bag of money, Jaren says that he's putting in a difficult situation, reminding him that he is also a knight. He says if something goes wrong, they'll both end up as priests in the king's church, so they're in this together. Jaren says that if he guesses so, and goes to let them in, only to be greeted with a sword directly into his skull, as the captain decides to take action, cutting him down on the spot. When his body falls to the floor, Tarkiv looks in horror, as it's not just the captain, but the rest of his men who are also killing all of the guards, and he tells them that he didn't want this to happen. The captain says that he should be happy, as there's no fun if they don't do this much. Tarkiv says that he's making this too difficult, as there are 3 gates, and the captain says that's not something to worry about, as he looks down at his hand. We see the forbidden flesh light as bugs start to crawl out of it. Tarkiv then blows onto them, making them pick up in the wind as they start attaching to everybody in front of him. The spiders start crawling into their bodies, just like they did to Tarkiv, as their bodies grow grotesque, only to reveal they're now giants. Tarkiv says he can't believe he never realized he was a heretic, and the captain smiles, saying it took him long enough to notice, and that they should continue working together. As it is mutual aid, he'll get the Book of the Divine King, and Tarkiv will get his revenge. He smiles, asking him what he thinks about his offer. He then whistles again, only for the spider in Tarkiv's stomach to start going crazy, causing him to fall to his knees in pain. The captain's men then look down at him, and the captain says that no one is allowed to leave this village from now on, telling them to go find the rat who stole his items. We see a man exiting his house, looking at the gates, wondering what the deal is. He walks up, asking what's going on, and he's told that some dudes are blocking them from leaving the village. They start asking why they can't leave. One of the guys who got hit with gigantification says it's because he said so. One of the villagers says that he doesn't have the right to stop them and tries to push him aside, saying that he's going to head out. He is crazy for picking a fight with this much of a size difference. He then gets his head palmed like a basketball, and the dude lifts him into the air, saying he already told him that nobody is allowed to leave. The rest watch in horror and start running away, and the guy says that something is strange. His partner says he agrees, and they start salivating, saying that they're hungry. The spiders then start pouring out of the dude's hand, and we see his mouth open up into some absolute nightmare fuel. The villager closes his eyes out of fear, only for him to hear a weird sound and open them to see an arrow lodged into the dude's throat. As the guy loses his grip and starts to fall over, the villager turns, wondering what's going on. Even the dude's partner looks up after hearing something, only to get impaled by Azaden, as he shoves a spear through the back of his head, planting him into the ground. The villager begins to regain his breath, and we see Azaden pull the spear out of the dude's head as he notices there are spiders crawling all over it. He says they are subordinates of the Spider Queen, Arthra.